What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Anim Aweh. I know it's been quite a while, but first and foremost, I want to wish all my fellow social workers out there a happy social work month. I hope you have enjoyed this month and that you have celebrated yourselves, most importantly, on top of being recognized by your various facilities, organizations, schools, wherever you're working. I hope you are recognized for your efforts. Today, I want to talk about actually the different opportunities that one can indulge in once they obtain their master's in social work, so their MSW. This is one of the questions that I get so frequently. So today I'm going to break down a number of opportunities and a number of ways that you can utilize and capitalize off of your MSW degree. So stay tuned. So number one, let's start with a licensed clinical social worker. Obviously, this is an individual who has posts obtained anywhere from 2,500 to 3,500 clinical hours plus 200 supervision hours, of course, depending on your state. But this individual is a licensed independent practitioner and can run and operate their own mental health clinic or their own mental health private practice. So the beauty in private practice is that you get so much flexibility, you get so much freedom, and you literally dictate how your time is managed. You also get to work with the population that you most definitely want to serve. So oftentimes when we are in the clinic setting or outpatient setting, we don't necessarily have the option in who we want to work with. We sort of get referrals across the board. They're handed to you. You're expected to work with them, which is a really valuable experience, right? I don't want to undermine that. I don't want to make it seem as if it's not a great way to build your skill sets and enhance your clinical tools, especially as a growing clinician. And that's the thing about this field. You're always growing, you're always evolving, you're always learning, you're constantly taking trainings, and you're constantly, learning to just be a better practitioner. And if you're not, then something's wrong. But with the licensed independent clinical social work licensure, you have so much freedom, you have so much authority. So it's definitely, even if you don't want to do clinical work, I always recommend that you get your LCSW or LICSW or whatever your state refers to as the top clinical license, to get that and start there and let it, you could use it in so many ways. So that is the first option. And also keep in mind 70% global mental health services are provided by social workers. So you want to make sure that you are able to provide quality and competent care for the individuals that you want to serve. So LCSW is definitely the route to go if you want to do private practice, or really honestly if you want to do anything and not have to worry about getting anybody's secondary signature or having to be under supervision or anything like that. It comes with complete freedom. So that's my first recommendation. I had to put my glasses on there, but my second recommendation or second thing that you could do with your MSW post graduation, and one of the most lucrative paths, if I'm being honest, is medical social work. This is you working in a hospital as either a medical social worker. Sometimes you may be working in the capacity of a clinical case manager. And so the reason why it's so lucrative is when you think about like a medical setting, particularly a hospital and the reimbursement rates, they're able to pay you a lot more than a small outpatient clinic can. And because medical practices are typically reimbursed at a higher rate than mental health practices because of the lack of mental health parity, it does provide you an opportunity to make a lot of money. From there actually goes to my third one, right? Travel social work. Now, travel social work, I have a video about that. It's not necessarily something you jump right into unless you have experience. It really is important to get clinical experience because you are expected to hit the ground running. Make sure you watch my video on jumping into the travel social work field. But going back to medical social work and clinical case management or just being in a hospital setting, uh, it looks differently in every setting that you're at. But most importantly, you're there to advocate for patients. You're there to support patients. You're there to be sort of an interim between them and their doctor. You're there to support them in making sure that they get home safely. So all those psychosocial potential barriers that come up as a social worker, you're expected to address that and support them in navigating into that transition from hospital to home. This next one, child welfare worker or child welfare social worker, I don't have too much experience with. I've never worked as one personally, but I know that a lot of people end up going that path. Number one, usually those jobs are tied to their local government, so it provides a lot of security and usually has really good benefits. Number two, for a lot of people, it can be a segue into gaining more clinical experience. So they get the opportunity to get free supervision, which a lot of jobs unfortunately don't provide. So it is a great way to not only build your clinical skill set, but also work with an array of different populations and kind of show up for them in different ways. So the child case worker slash social worker can look a little differently depending on your local government. So definitely encourage you to check out what that role might look like at your individual government level and see if that's something that aligns with you. But they typically make a decent salary. It's not the more higher paying ones as like medical social work or clinical case management, but it's definitely an opportunity to, again, to get your foot in the door, get some experience, learn who you want to work with, and understand sort of the ins and out of sort of like government and sort of policies, because I think a lot of that, not I think, I know for sure that type of experience and knowledge would definitely serve you in different roles wherever you end up going. And finally, one of the more popular routes that folks can go to and don't necessarily require a license, but again, I do recommend it, is going to explore macro social work roles. And macro social work can look a lot of different ways. So oftentimes we tie macro work to being synonymous to policy work, advocacy work, or management work, but it also could look like consulting. Particularly in my instance, clinical consulting. And that, again, is why I say it's really important to make sure you get that clinical license or that you make sure that that is a priority for you. So right now, I work as a clinical advisor for a mental health startup. And so they use my clinical skills, and I also use my business and macro skills to make sure that not only is the company growing strategically, but also keeping in mind relevance of the product and making sure that the clinical product is also ethically responsible and that it's upholding the clinical and ethical guidelines of our boards and making sure, most importantly, that it's doing no harm to clients and that nobody is acting outside of their scope of practice or outside of their clinical capacity. So those are my tips for utilizing your MSW. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about anything in particular or want to learn more about any particular routes. Good to see you. Take care.